Hi, I'm Kadian Callahan, professor of mathematics education. People ask me from time to time, why did I become a professor? Well, here's my story. When I was 6 years old, I used to watch Sesame Street, and there was this character called the Count, and I loved the Count. He would count like this: 1, 2, 3. And then he would go into some mathematics lesson, and I was sold. I loved mathematics and all that I was learning from Sesame Street and also from what I was learning in school. And it felt to me like a puzzle. There were all these different ways of thinking about mathematics, of learning about numbers and shapes, and you could put them together to solve problems and to envision what's happening in the world. And I was excited about that. It felt like the same way that you are working on a puzzle and you've got all these different pieces, and you might decide that you want to focus on putting a flower together because it's drawing your attention, or you might decide, let me leave that flower alone for a little while and work on this branch that's going through the middle of the puzzle. But either way, no matter where you start in the puzzle, all of the pieces eventually come together to form something that's beautiful. And that's what mathematics felt like to me. It was fun. And I was really excited about the patterns and the relationships. And so as I was going through school, I kept looking for patterns and relationships. As I was solving problems and thinking about situations, I looked for those types of relationships that would make math meaningful to me. Now, when I was an undergraduate, I was taking a course called linear algebra. And part of that course involves the study of matrices. And a matrix it's just another mathematics object, and you do the things that you do with other mathematics objects that you are familiar with, I'm sure, simplifying, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And so I spent a lot of time in that course working with matrices, especially on homework. You do 50 of the same problem, and you start noticing that well, I started noticing that there were patterns in the ways that I was working with matrices, and there were more efficient ways for me to solve matrices. And so I developed a strategy that I tried, and it worked. And then I tried it again on a different problem, and it worked. And so I kept using it instead of using the longer method that I had learned from my professor. Well, when I went to take an exam, I remember I got the exam back and there was a problem involving matrices that I had gotten only 4 points credit out of 10. And so I wondered, what did I do wrong with this question? Because I know I used my strategy on this one and it worked in all the other contexts. Why didn't it work here? So I decided I'd take the problem home and rework it using my strategy, and I got the same answer. And then I thought, well, let me go ahead and check it with the strategy my professor had shown us, and I got the same answer. And I didn't understand why I'd gotten it wrong, so I went to my professor and asked her. When I spoke with the professor, she said that I didn't get full credit because she didn't understand how I solved the problem. So I thought, great, no problem. I'll just show her what these little markings mean by, walking her through my method, and she'll be just as excited as I am that I've come up with this new strategy that works. And maybe she'll even show it to the other students. So I did. I walked her through it, explained what the different markings meant and how it worked. And she seemed to understand, but then she only gave me back 4 additional points out of the 10. So then I had 8 out of 10. And I was confused and frustrated that she didn't recognize my way of solving the problem as valid and valuable enough to give me full credit on it. And that was something that really made a difference for me as a student and that I've carried with me into my career as a faculty member. To me, it's very important for students to know that the mathematics is theirs. It is something that we have these tools, we have these processes that they can use or adapt or create their own. I like to help my students understand the mathematics that exists, but I also want to position them to discover new ways of doing things, new ideas and new solutions, because that's what I think will help them in the world to be able to solve things that are not as direct and clean. And I think it's important to develop that in students through the type of mathematics that they engage in and the ways that we value their thinking. So that's what I do as a professor of mathematics education. I teach. I teach mathematics to students. I teach them how to learn and how to engage with the content, how to engage with each other. And then I provide them those opportunities to make the mathematics meaningful for themselves. I also study that process in my research, and in my service, I help other faculty to do similar things in their courses. I'm Kadian Callahan, professor of mathematics education.